Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining the second installment of the Arizona Commerce Authority workshop for business owners. Today, we're going to be discussing workforce and workforce strategies for the small business owner in the state of Arizona. What's really important to understand is as the governor's been working quickly to put supportive policy in place as the federal dollars begin to flow, that you as the business owner and us as the supportive agencies remain as supportive as possible and making sure that we're remaining more fluid than the situation is. What's the most important piece here is we're buying time for the business owner to understand their respective situations, both in headcount, but also in the business, the core business itself, while we're making sure that you're able to retain vital people, be able to continue to earn revenue and to make sure that you're able to collect on your receivables. So it's as we get kicked off today, since our last workshop last week, it's important to note for the business owner the executive order issued by the governor's office, Executive Order 2020-21, which is the prohibition of small business evictions, and that extends to nonprofit organizations as well. And we also wanted to give folks an update that today's workshop is going to be about the facts as we know them today. We do understand that there is discussion taking place at the federal level for the potential for additional funding for the Paycheck Protection Program. But what we'll be speaking to are the facts as we understand them today. This is our agenda for today. So we're going to be, very quickly, I'll cover the introductions, and then we'll step into the Paycheck Protection Program, the updates that are relevant to that program. We'll be getting to a discussion around workplace liabilities and making sure that as employers, as you continue your operations, especially those as essential services, that you're operating in a manner that makes sure that you're protecting you and your business as you continue your operations. We'll have a short discussion around the Extended Family Medical Leave Act, and then we'll step into a conversation with one of our other panelists, Kalu Wilson, regarding crosswalking and training opportunities in the event that your organization has arrived at the conclusion that they must furlough employees. We'll also be discussing some of the new unemployment insurance and eligibility guidelines as evident by the Department of Economic Security. So I'll be moderating the group today. James Pipper is with the Small Business Administration. He's the Assistant District Director there for Economic Development. We also have David Barton and Catherine Hackett-King, both of Burns-Barton, with some really good insights on your business operations during the COVID outbreak. We have Kalu Wilson with the Office of Economic Opportunity, who's our workforce administrator, and I just call her our all-in-all workforce expert. She's recently joined the Arizona Commerce Authority, and she's stunned everybody quickly, so we're very happy to have her on board. We'll also have Michael Weishart with the Department of Economic Security. He's the Assistant Director there with the Division of Employment and Rehabilitative Services. So thank you all panelists for joining us today. We'll dive right into things. Jim, if you wouldn't mind giving us a quick update on all things that are taking place with the Paycheck Protection Program.
Okay, Paul, you're going to work the,
Sure.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you very much. Thank you, Paul, for putting this on. Thank you. Thank the staff for pitching in and helping out. Got a great bunch of folks down there at the Arizona Commerce Authority trying to help out a lot of people. So here's the caption on Paycheck Protection Program. As you can see, $349 billion was allocated for small businesses, and 100% guaranteed, federally guaranteed for small businesses that maintain their payroll during this emergency. So we've got a couple slides we're going to burn through. So Paul, you want to go to the next slide? This is a high level view. Okay, immediate cash flow. These loans may be forgiven if borrowers maintain their payrolls during the crisis or restore payrolls afterwards. As Paul mentioned, we're trying to preserve talent, to help you preserve talent that may have been laid off, or you're having to lay off, or you're trying to keep on board. And this is a program to help that cause. So keep going, Paul. Okay, eligibility for the program is small businesses with 500 employees. That's a standard SBA standard to be qualified. Small businesses that otherwise meet SBA size standard. Oh, excuse me. Should have turned that off. Thank you. Sorry about that. We got 501c3 nonprofits with fewer than 500 employees, individual who operates as sole proprietors, independent contractors, self-employed, tribal businesses, again, that meet the SBA size standard, and 501c19 veteran organizations that meets the SBA size standard. Keep going, Paul. I'm going to run through these pretty quick and summarize that. I think you've given me about 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, Paul?
Yep.
Okay. Eligible payroll cost. For employees, some payments of any compensation for sole proprietors, independent contractors, and self-employed individuals. Sum of payments of any compensation to or income of a sole proprietor that is not more than 100,000 in 1 year as prorated for the covered period, minus the sum of included payroll costs, compensation, payroll taxes, etc., railroad retirement taxes, qualified sick leave, wages, and that equals your payroll cost. I would encourage every business owner that is trying to get their arms around this to check with either their accountants, bookkeepers, or payroll specialists that they may have employed to help them with payroll. It's often confused. So Paul, keep going. Okay, evaluating eligibility. Proof that the borrower was in operation before February 15th and had employees whom they paid salaries and payroll taxes or paid independent contractors. Good faith certification. The uncertainty of current economic conditions makes the loan request necessary to support ongoing operations. The borrower will use the loan proceeds to retain workers and maintain payroll or make mortgage, lease, and utility payments. Borrowers does not have to have an application pending for a loan duplicative of the purpose and amounts applied for here. From February 15, 2020 to December 31st, the borrower has not received, let me finish that, Paul, thank you. Loan duplicative of the purpose and amounts applied for here. So what we're saying here is apply for, you may have applied for other loans, just don't duplicate the costs that are being covered here in this scenario. Okay, Paul. Next slide. Okay. The borrower is eligible for, Okay, the borrower is eligible for loan forgiveness equal to the amount the borrower spent on the following items during the 8-week period, beginning on the date of the origination of the loan. Payroll costs, interest on mortgage, as I mentioned, rent on a leasing agreement, payments on utilities, and for borrowers with tipped employees, additional wages paid to those employees. One caution, make sure that your costs for tips are carefully analyzed. You're going to be expected to provide good explanation for these costs. So keep going, Paul. Next slide. Oh, next slide. There we go. Okay. Reducing forgiveness. These loans have a forgiveness feature, and we caution you to be careful. Make sure you understand it, or you get help in understanding it. The amount of the loan forgiveness is reduced if there is a reduction in the number of employees or reduction of greater than 25% in wages paid to employees. And these slides, Paul, are going to be made available. Is that correct?
That's correct. These will be available on the azcommerce.com the website for the Arizona Commerce Authority, and you'll see there's a navigation bar at the top for COVID responses, and in there are resources for business owners.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, Paul. Okay, this is our Arizona District Office approved Arizona Lenders List. We've been using it for years. We monitored it, we develop it, we keep it updated, and it's been a very useful tool for finding a borrower. And it has been clearly noted that individuals have been applying for the PPP loans, and they're finding that there are some lenders that have made business decisions that they have either capped the sum that they've devoted to this program, or they are issues they are discussing, and you may find it difficult to work with your current lender. So we put phone numbers to the SBA loan departments, and we developed this matrix again as a working tool for our office to help you find a lender. For the PPP program, our strongest suggestion, if you went to a bank and you found the opportunity not available, I would suggest that you go to other banks. We have some very, very, very helpful individuals working at these institutions that we've worked with for years, that we know are trying very, very hard to help you access this program. And we are devoted to trying to help you. We are 10 employees strong in our office. We are fielding a whole lot of phone calls and a lot of emails, and from our district director on down, we're all trying to help get the word out. And these slides, Paul, will be very beneficial. Thank you very much for putting them together. There's more to follow as we try to navigate our way through this pandemic that we're all experiencing. I do want to add, what time do I got, Paul?
We just got 1 more minute, Jim, and I've got a few questions for you as well.
Okay, all right, let's take the questions.
Sure. So let's so a number of questions coming from the audience. The question is around the eligibility of employees. So in the payroll count, are they to include part-time employees, full-time employees, and or any of those that might be out on PTO or paid time off?
All of the above.
Okay, that's the short answer. And what sort of proof are they required to provide when they're applying for the loan?
Well, they're going to have to provide their payroll records, and that can vary, business to business, and the lenders are trying to get their arms around the documentation as well. So it may vary. So my best suggestion is we have our Small Business Development Center network that is working hard to try to help individuals with those issues. So again, that can be found on AZ SBDC. And they're, again, working to assist you at no cost through this navigation on this program, Paul.
Excellent. And then one last question, Jim. The question is on whether or not benefits are included, specifically 401k versus any sort of healthcare premiums that might be paid.
I'll have to get back to you on that one, Paul. Not sure myself.
Okay, fair enough. That's a fair answer. Fair answer. A lot of these policies are under development.
They are.
So we'll be transitioning next to the Burns-Barton team on workplace considerations for COVID. Kate, are you ready for your section here?
I think David will kick it off.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you, Paul. Yes, so we appreciate the opportunity to be part of this presentation. I've been watching the questions fly in, and I would just suggest that if anybody has a question about our section, please feel free to email either Kate or I, and we'll try and get back to you if we don't have a chance to answer that question during our presentation. The first thing I'd like to kind of point out the general overview of the basic purpose of the new laws that have been passed by Congress. and they're known basically as the FFCRA and the Carrots Law. And the goal of both of them is to keep employers alive so that they can continue to pay employees and keep those employees on the payroll. So as a result, the laws are structured in such a way that if you keep your employees, you're going to get federal help. You're going to get that help in two ways. Number one, you're going to get a credit, a tax credit, payroll tax credit, for all the benefits you're required to pay under these new statutes. And number two, you're going to be able to qualify for more loan forgiveness if you get the PPP loan that James was just talking about. So there is some big incentive in both of these laws to try and keep your people on the payroll. And quite frankly, a lot of the clients that we were working with in the labor and employment area here in Arizona are trying to do just that. They recognize that they've got a talented group of employees. They want to find ways to keep them around, but they're struggling because they've got a significant decrease in revenues, sometimes no revenues. And so we are helping a lot of our clients try and sort through those difficulties and find ways to keep people around, either through a furlough, an unpaid furlough, or other types of work sharing arrangements, or quite frankly, repurposing your employees. We've got one client who is a real estate company who has repurposed his employees to try and find a way to import masks from China. So there's a lot of creative ways to keep your people around, and if you do so, these new laws are going to provide significant benefits to you for doing so. So let's switch to the next one. The other thing I point out is these benefits, one thing that's become clear is because the federal government is going to be handing out tax credits to people who provide these new leave benefits that are created by the FFCRA, the government's been a little bit careful to say you can't just hand them out like candy. You've got to be very careful about who is entitled to leave under the FFCRA. And Paul, if you can go to the next slide, we'll talk about that. There are basically two types of leave. The first is sick pay. And then second is the Enhanced Family Medical Leave Act. We'll talk about that. The sick pay itself comes in two different varieties. The first is the full rate sick pay. And this is basically if the employee himself or herself is required to stay home because of the coronavirus. So they're either sick, they've been told to self-quarantine, or they're experiencing symptoms of coronavirus and they're seeking medical diagnoses. If those things apply to the employee and the employee is entitled to stay home, they're entitled to be paid. And that pay is at the regular rate for their normal hours, up to $500 a day with $5,110 over the period of 10 days or 80 hours. This is obviously intended to help folks who are legitimately sick, to allow the employer to send them home and to ensure that those employees get paid. One of the questions I often get is, okay, how does this work with my existing policies, or how does it work with the Arizona's paid sick leave? And the answer is, you start with the federal benefit first, then you apply the Arizona benefit, and then after that, your own personal benefits, whatever benefits your company would provide in the way of sick pay, kick in as a third layer. Let's skip to the next slide, Paul. There's also sick pay available if the employee is caring for somebody else who has been struck down, if you would, by this virus or subject to a quarantine order. And that middle one is caring for a child whose school or child care is otherwise closed or unavailable. That's an important one, because if that's the reason why you're staying home, you also are entitled to a certain FMLA, extended FMLA benefits. And those benefits are going to be discussed more in the FMLA slides, but keep that one on your mind. Notice that the pay for taking care of somebody else is only at 2/3 the employee's regular rate, and it's capped at $200 a day or $2,000 in the aggregate. All right, let's skip to the next question. So talking about the FMLA extension, Paul, this slide is duplicative actually. Let's go to the next slide. The FMLA leave, sorry, the next slide. Next. One more. There you go. The extended FMLA leave is up to 12 weeks of FMLA. So this basically did two things with the existing Family Medical Leave Act. Number one, it created a new reason for taking FMLA leave. And that reason is that you're unable to work because you have to care for a minor child because the child's school's been closed, or the child care provider is not available. Now notice a couple things about this. First of all, it says you're unable to work. So that excludes teleworking. If employees can telework from home, and provide care for their children at the same time, then they're not eligible for this particular leave. And the new regulations that came out last week are very clear about that. If there's a way for the employee to continue working, they're not entitled to this FMLA leave. And telework, by the way, is kind of expansively defined. If you've got a computer and you've got the internet and you can do your job from home and your employer is willing to let you do your job, then you are I guess presumed to be able to telework, and you have to show that either you're way too sick or to be able to continue to work, or that your child just makes it impossible for you to work in order to qualify for this particular FMLA benefit. So it's a really interesting line that the Department of Labor has drawn with regard to regulations, which say the employees really got to show that they need this leave and they otherwise just cannot work given the COVID situations. Another question we get, and I see that somebody's actually asking on one of the questions is, well, what if I reduced my payroll or my workers for other reasons? Let's suppose I just don't have enough work and they're not working for that reason. And the answer is then they're not qualified for these benefits. The regulations make it pretty clear that if you eliminated jobs, for example, or you send people home simply because you don't have work, then they're not staying home for any of these qualifying reasons, and as a result, they're not qualified. They're not eligible for this leave. It's a very interesting and tricky question, so we definitely recommend that if you have that come up, you have to consult with legal counsel, kind of on a case-by-case basis, to make sure that individual employees are not otherwise eligible for the leave. Notice too that under the extended FMLA, this is 12 weeks, but the first 2 weeks, the first 10 days, can be unpaid. And of course, that's because there's the paid sick leave that arguably would provide complete coverage to the entire 12 weeks, because that first 2 weeks are paid under the extended paid sick leave provisions, and then the FMLA kicks in. So for most folks who are truly sick or have a child that is sick, they're going to get some kind of a pay under this benefit. Now, this extended FMLA is not at full rate. It is at 2/3 your normal rate, again, capped at $200 a day and $10,000 total. Next slide. So what we'd recommend for folks is if you're struggling with this, it's not too late to kind of sit down and say, okay, what are my employment policies doing, and what am I doing? We've helped a lot of clients been able to kind of develop work from home policies, to develop safe work practices so you can keep as many people as possible actually on the job. There are ways to do that. The CDC, by the way, just yesterday relaxed somewhat their restrictions on allowing people to come back to work even after they have had the COVID virus. So if you're not familiar with that guidance from the CDC, you ought to take a look at that or give us a call. There are ways that you can ensure that your people can still work even if you're concerned about this existing problem. And by the way, the governor's order, if you're not familiar with the governor's order that require operations or businesses to slow down or stop, has got a lot of ways that it's designed to allow essential businesses and businesses that really have a hard time kind of surviving without their workers coming to work to continue to work. So if you have some question about your ability to be able to stay open and provide services, again, you ought to consult with legal counsel, because looking carefully at that order, you find ways that you can keep your business open in one way or another. I have one client, for example, that's completely repurposing their facility in order to become an essential business. And there are ways to do that if you just kind of think creatively about what you do, what services you can provide, and whether you can stay open. Finally, you ought to think about whether you need some EFMLA or EPSL policies, or for example, even a request for leave. The guidance from OSHA right now is still telling employers that they shouldn't ask employees to provide medical certification for their need for COVID-related leave, because the medical profession obviously is pretty overwhelmed. And so they've recommended that employers send employees home with a questionnaire, essentially, and let the employee fill out the questionnaire so that they can then certify the need for the leave. We have those questionnaires. If people need them, please feel free to get in touch. Finally, we would point out that if you're concerned about employees getting sick on the job, remember that you're covered by workers' compensation. But to be sure that you get the benefit of the immunity provided under Arizona's workers' compensation statute, you want to make sure you have your notice posted and opt-out forms available. You have to have both of those things in place in order to get the immunity should somebody get sick at work, which can be tough to prove, but assuming they can prove that they got COVID at your workplace, you're going to want to make sure your workers' compensation policy is up to snuff and you have all the requirements for it. So with that, Paul, are there any questions? Otherwise, I'll turn it over to Kate.
We do have a few. One of the interesting questions here, we've got interest in how many of these rules and policies affect companies that are over 500 employees. And there's one asking questions about being at 500 employees now or just above it. And as a result of maybe some furloughs dropping below that 500 mark. And that seems to be the line of demarcation. Which side do they operate on?
Great question. The question is when the leave is needed. The answer is when the leave is needed. So if you're under 500 at the time somebody comes to you and says, I need this leave, you got to provide it. So if you're laying people off right now, you may actually fall under the $500, the 500 employee mark and be subject to these laws. And so how does it impact employers with larger than 500? It doesn't. We represent a lot of clients that fit within that category, and I have a few of them that are extending these benefits anyway, but they are not subject to the law.
Thank you. One other question that we had was on the extended FMLA as it relates to this burden of proof of whether or not there was childcare available elsewhere for an individual that's making a claim. Your thoughts there?
So I don't think the Act requires you to go out and try and find other childcare. I think what the regulations are intended to prevent is that where you have two people in the home that are working, for example, and both of them are working from home, is there a way that the couple can share childcare responsibilities? So that the regulations ask, is there somebody else in the home that can provide care for the child?
Excellent. Kate, I think we're ready to move on to your section here. And what we'll do is we'll catalog these questions. We've currently got, it appears to be 122 questions in backlog. We will get to these in our frequently asked questions portion of our website. Again, that's azcommerce.com in the follow the COVID navigation to the Business Resource Center. But Kate, let's, and in the interest of holding the schedule here, let's move on to your portion. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Paul. So I'd like to just start by talking about some workplace safety issues related to COVID-19. And the governor's executive order issued last week, that's the stay home, stay healthy, stay connected order, made clear that businesses who are classified as performing essential functions may remain open and maintain operations, but they're required under the executive order to establish and implement the social distancing rules and procedures that facilitate the physical distancing and spacing of people of at least 6 feet, as well as sanitation measures required by the Federal Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA. And so consequently, for businesses here in Arizona who are operating and conducting essential functions, you should immediately put into place policies and procedures that facilitate distancing of at least 6 feet. The OSHA standards for workplace safety, actually OSHA recently published guidance for preparing workplaces for COVID-19, which outlines steps employers can take to protect their workforce. It's available on the OSHA website, so I'd recommend that you take a look at those guidelines. There is no specific OSHA standard covering COVID-19, but there are some OSHA requirements that may apply to preventing occupational exposure to COVID-19. The generally applicable guideline is OSHA's General Duty Clause, which requires employers to furnish each worker with employment and a place of employment which are free from recognized hazards that are causing or are likely to cause death or serious physical harm. For COVID-19, OSHA recommends, among other things, businesses implement good hygiene policies, develop policies and procedures to ensure the prompt identification and isolation of sick people, provide employees with guidance and training on symptoms of COVID-19, and then immediately removing anybody who develops such symptoms from the workplace. And a policy also require employees to inform the company if they have been exposed, if they have symptoms, or test positive for COVID-19. On the subject of masks, just a few days ago, the CDC began recommending that people wear cloth face masks in public to slow the spread of the virus. For non-healthcare organizations, this is it's not mandatory, it's a recommendation at this point. However, I would suggest that if an employee asks you as an employer if they can wear a mask, as a practical matter, I believe it's most prudent to allow the worker to wear a mask if it makes him or her feel safer. And the reason I'm saying that is that in this environment, first of all, not allowing the employee to wear a mask could create PR issues or possibly prompt an employee complaint to OSHA. If an employee develops symptoms consistent with COVID-19, in addition to OSHA, there are considerations under the Americans with Disabilities Act and the Arizona Civil Rights Act. And the EEOC has some guidance issued to deal with these medical issues in the workplace. You as an employer may instruct employees to stay home or leave work if they develop symptoms consistent with COVID-19. The EEOC has stated that advising workers to go home is permissible and not considered disability related if the symptoms present are consistent with those of COVID-19. And the CDC agrees. And although there are some privacy considerations you'll need to consider in certain steps that you will need to take, the EEOC has also indicated that under these COVID-19 circumstances, taking an employee's temperature at work is permissible to determine if they may be infected. And in fact, the CDC has recently suggested that employers in certain parts of the country take employee temperatures. But keep in mind that an employee may be infected with COVID-19, but not exhibiting any symptoms. So you should consider the usefulness of taking temperatures. If you have an employee who actually tests positive for COVID-19, before sending home the infected employee, ask them to identify all individuals with whom they've worked in close proximity within 6 feet for a prolonged period of time in the last 14 days. And then I'd recommend that it's prudent to send home all employees who are on that list, and those employees should then self-monitor for symptoms. The CDC then recommends closing off areas used by the ill employee and waiting as long as possible before cleaning and disinfecting the area. And that's to minimize the potential exposure to respiratory droplets. Also make sure the cleaning crew has appropriate personal protective equipment. If you have an employee who tests positive for COVID-19, the question we've been getting is when can they return to work? When can they discontinue isolation? And as David said, the CDC has issued guidance on its website for discontinuation of isolation for people in both healthcare and non-healthcare settings. So take a look at that guidance. If you need a link, reach out to me or David and we can provide the link. But generally, it provides a couple of different options to determine when somebody can return to work. One is a non-test based strategy that's based on the time since illness onset and the time since recovery. Or there's also a test-based strategy, which requires the resolution of a fever and symptoms and requires a negative test result, which I will say, may be somewhat difficult due to limited testing supplies at this current moment. I wanted to touch upon new changes to unemployment benefits, and Michael with DES will cover that in more detail. The governor and legislature have taken prompt and swift action to provide unemployment benefits to people impacted by COVID-19. And I know Michael will cover that, but I do want to just mention one thing. The DES has a shared unemployment compensation program, which is an alternative for employers who have a reduction in available work. It allows an employer to divide the available work among a group of affected employees in lieu of a layoff, and it allows employees to receive a portion of their unemployment benefits while working reduced hours. And under normal circumstances, under this program, an employee can receive unemployment compensation if their normal weekly hours are reduced by at least 10%, but no more than 40%. But a recent Senate bill actually gave DES the authority to approve shared work benefits, where an individual's normal weekly hours are reduced by up to 80%. And I know we're short on time, so Paul, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to you.
I appreciate that. So one of the questions, and I think you touched on it real briefly, Kate, was in the event of somebody returning to the workplace, what sort of precautions are wise for the employer from the standpoint of either getting an all clear from a health standpoint, or are there any duties to notify the other employees when that person returns to the workplace?
No, I would just recommend the CDC has the guidelines on their website about how to safely ensure an employee is symptom-free and can return to the workplace. And once they meet those guidelines, they really can, under the CDC guidelines, can return to work. And I have a link, if anybody needs a link to those guidelines, because they are very specific about numbers of days and other specific guidelines, and I can provide a link if needed.
Excellent, thank you. And then there was one comment on occupations where the person's unable to maintain the social distancing in the workplace, such as a home healthcare worker and along those lines. Any general guidance for somebody operating in one of those areas?
You know, that's a great question, and I hadn't thought about that, because the executive order does indicate, you know, the requirement to implement social distancing measures. That's something I'd have to take a closer look at, Paul.
There are, Paul, this is David, sorry, there are guidance on OSHA's website. OSHA divides the workforce into 3 different categories, and one is basically a high risk kind of work job, which would be just what you described. And for those jobs, they have a long series. Just Google OSHA guidance on COVID, and you'll find the worksheet that makes those recommendations. But among them, obviously, is the use of personal protective equipment to ensure that the worker won't be exposed while handling or dealing with people in very close proximity.
Excellent. Oops, sorry, I just jumped out of my presentation mode here. Okay, excellent. So we'll move on to our next portion of the workshop. Then this is going to be with Kalu Wilson, who's going to be discussing some opportunities for employers that either want to pivot their employees into new roles, or they're actually looking for short-term opportunities and transitioning them into temporary activities. Kalu? Kalu? You're muted.
Hi, I was muted. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Paul. Sorry about that. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kalu Wilson, and in my role as the Workforce Administrator, I serve as the Board Director to the Governor's Workforce Development Board, known as the Workforce Arizona Council. The Council provides the strategic vision for the state's public workforce system, known as Arizona at Work. Arizona at Work is a statewide network of public and private partners that provide innovative workforce solutions to you as an employer and to your employees. These resources are supported by federal funds and are provided at no charge. So please, after this presentation, visit Arizona at Work to contact your local Arizona at Work office. If you have businesses in multiple locations, please contact us and we can coordinate your services across the multiple locations. Paul, I'm not sure if my presentation is on the screen, but I'll keep going.
I'm sorry, getting this up right now. Sorry, we jumped out of.
No problem. So the mass layoff impact of COVID-19 has required, thank you, Paul, has required our workforce system to quickly adapt how we administer employment and training programs and how we deliver services in light of social distancing. So please note, as I'm discussing the programs and services available to you, these are all provided virtually via phone and internet. So on behalf of Governor Ducey and state partners, including the Arizona Commerce Authority, the Office of Economic Opportunity, Department of Economic Security, and Arizona at Work, we are launching a comprehensive statewide rapid response tailored to COVID-19. We are working to identify, plan for, and respond to layoffs and to prevent or minimize the impact on workers, your businesses, and communities. So what is rapid response exactly? It's essentially a set of activities that are necessary to plan for and deliver services to your businesses and workers following a mass layoff. Services are typically triggered by a layoff notice through filing a worker adjustment and retraining notification with the Department of Economic Security, or through an informal notice provided to your local Arizona at Work office. So please contact DES if you have any questions regarding the filing requirement, or you can contact your local Arizona at Work office. The Office of Economic Opportunity is leading a COVID-19 rapid response team, including Arizona at Work and other public-private partners. We have a series of initiatives that focuses on layoff aversion, rapid reemployment services, and employment training services that are aimed at preventing or minimizing the duration of unemployment. We are looking at how we can, from the state level, implement and expand innovative programs and strategies to meet the needs of all employers, regardless of size and workers. Some initiatives are short-term triage focused, and other initiatives are focused on a mid to long-term strategy to mitigate any lasting workforce impacts. In all instances, we are factoring in workforce retention and workforce transitions, because we know that some employers are faced with temporary layoffs or furloughing of workers, and in other instances, there are permanent layoff of workers who will need to transition into new jobs and obtain new skills. I'm going to provide you with some examples of initiatives that we have underway that may be of interest to your company, and end with how the state's COVID-19 rapid response team can directly assist your company if you are experiencing or anticipating layoffs. You can go to the next slide, Paul. So funding, we are seeking federal grants where applicable and identifying the best use for the source of funds that we currently have. This includes an emphasis on supporting new jobs and job placement activities. For example, we will be launching a competitive grant application for the state's job training grant program, and that will be tailored to meet the needs of jobs created as a result of COVID-19. For crosswalking of employers and employees, we've been diligently working with industries most impacted by layoffs, with industries that have experienced an increase in hiring needs by implementing the trainings needed and expediting talent matching services. We are launching a series of virtual training programs for in-demand occupations and prioritizing enrollment of furloughed and laid off workers. This includes upskilling opportunities so workers can return to their employers with enhanced skills and credentials. And I'll explain some opportunities with that a little bit later. But I wanted to share two examples with you. We are working with major employers like Honeywell, who are adding 500 plus manufacturing jobs as a result of their N95 mass production operation. In addition to assisting in recruiting and filling those jobs, we will be assisting in expediting their training and necessary credential attainment for those workers. Another example is our work with the Arizona Office of Tourism to match displaced workers in hospitality with existing full-time or temporary job openings within in-demand sectors. So, Paul, we can go to the next slide. So, COVID-19 rapid response services for your business. So the team will guide your business through the difficult process of layoffs during these times. This includes helping you comply with federal regulations that apply to mass layoffs and bringing a variety of virtual services to you and your employees. In partnership with our local Arizona at Work partners, we can convene a meeting with your leaders and labor representatives, if applicable to your business, to discuss rapid response activities, conduct a needs assessment, and discuss any layoff aversion opportunities. Some layoff aversion strategies really help businesses make changes to reduce or avoid layoffs and to help retain or save jobs. This includes many of the examples provided in the business continuity webinar series, so I won't cover those again, but I want to highlight a few workforce programs that may be of interest. Sorry. For businesses that are looking to hire or retain employees on payroll, we can look to see if any work-based training programs may apply. I mentioned the ACA's job training grant program earlier, but there are others available through Arizona at Work. For example, the incumbent worker training grant is an option where your employees can build upon their skills to meet the business needs and avoid layoffs. This allows for a better prepared workforce when your business is back up and running again. We can go to the next slide, Paul. For workers that are being laid off, whether temporarily or permanently, these workers are automatically dislocated workers and are eligible for career and training services, which includes an individual training account with an average of $4,000 provided for training. This allows the laid off workers to obtain credentials in the interim and return back to work with new and improved skills. And for workers that are permanently laid off, they are able to transition into new occupations. We can go on to the next slide. This is my last slide. So if your workers are represented by a union or labor bargaining unit, we can work with them and your leaders to devise and implement a strategy for assessing their employment and training needs. In providing emergency assistance, this depends on the circumstances of the individual worker, but we can provide what are known as support services to help mitigate any employment barriers. That includes assistance related to childcare, transportation, rental assistance, utilities, etc. This will help stabilize the employee in the interim until they're able to return back to work. And lastly, providing assistance to the community, to local communities, is really about obtaining assistance from the state's leading economic development agency and coordinating a rapid response. And this is exactly the prime example of the business continuity webinar. So on behalf of the Arizona Commerce Authority, the Office of Economic Opportunity, the Department of Economic Security, and all of the leaders at Arizona at Work, we know these are difficult times and we want to do everything within our power to assist your businesses the best that we can. So please feel free to reach out to us. Whether you're hiring or laying off, we can assess what resources and services are available to you. Thank you.
And Kalu, I think we've got a couple of questions here that are in the same space, what you touched on earlier, but it was specifically around opportunities for employees to be temporarily crosswalked to other positions and whatnot. How does that process begin?
Well, it would begin by the business contacting us or shooting us an email, and we'll follow up with you. We'll ask you a series of questions to identify what it is that you're hoping to achieve. Are you looking to, are you laying off workers and hoping to maybe help them quickly transition into new occupations? Or are you having a massive hiring need and we can quickly identify workers who are laid off from other companies to help train them and place them with your employees? So the very first step would be just send us an email. We will follow up with a phone call, have a series of questions to understand what is unique and what your circumstances are. And then we will tailor a solution for you.
Excellent. Well, thank you for answering those questions. I know your office and certainly upcoming here is the Department of Economic Security, both extremely busy at this time, but not too busy to support out the Arizona business community. So I appreciate your thoughts today. Next, we have Michael Weishart with the Department of Economic Security.
So thanks, Paul. I know everyone is aware of and experiencing the dramatic crisis level unemployment that is occurring out there, and certainly appreciate all of your efforts to keep your team operational, keep folks working, and keep the American economic engine moving forward. I won't get into too much of the significant numbers, but just for context, in the highest week of the Great Recession, we received about 11,000 unemployment insurance claims, the worst week during the Great Recession. As many of you saw, last week we received 125,000 claims. And so this significant increase has led to a lot of activity on our side in order to meet the demand. But I do want to get into some of the policy changes that have occurred over the past handful of weeks in response to the crisis. Obviously, you all are aware that the CARES Act was passed a couple of weeks ago. It allows for an additional 13 weeks of benefits for individuals that are displaced by COVID-19. So there's a total of 39 weeks of benefits available for individuals. Additionally, the state temporarily waived the waiting period that usually applies for unemployment. The way that it usually works is you become unemployed, you have 1 week of attempting to become re-employed and re-engaged with the workforce, and then benefits begin the following week. That middle week is now gone. And so we're paying benefits for individuals pretty much immediately after their income is disrupted. Additionally, Congress authorized $600 per week. This is for weeks ending before July 31st, but really it will end on the week ending July 25th, 2020, the way the Department of Labor has interpreted the law. This is obviously something where folks are considering the unemployment insurance benefit, and it's important for individuals who are currently employed to remain employed. So keep working with your folks to help them continue to be productive. But if for some reason they become employment disrupted, we will provide an additional $600 to all eligible individuals. For businesses in particular, you can go on to the next one, Paul, but for businesses in particular, it's important to note that the executive order that Governor Ducey signed waived the chargeability to employers that usually exists with unemployment insurance during the time of this emergency period. So that will really help alleviate some of the future tax burdens that employers might feel from the disruption that's occurring, and will hopefully help us accelerate normalcy when this crisis is over. Individuals that may be eligible, if there's a disruption to income for folks, we want them to apply for benefits. So I think that's our basic statement. But if employers have had drastically reduced operations or ordered to quarantine or are directly impacted and have medical involvement, then obviously, these benefits are here to help with any of those situations. The last bullet on this slide refers to the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program. This is for individuals that have not historically been eligible. They're operating in the gig economy, they're self-employed, they're contract workers. This is a brand new program that we're trying to stand up. So it's gonna take us a few weeks to get this operational. And so we appreciate folks' patience as we stand up this brand new program, ensure that eligible individuals receive this benefit, and maintain the important and appropriate program integrity that's necessary as we distribute this money to individuals that are qualified. You go on, Paul. The best way to interact with the unemployment insurance system, especially in this time of tremendous need, is online. So you can go to azui.com to apply. We have a friendly little chat bot that we've added. So if folks have specific questions, they can interact with that chat bot on azui.com. If that doesn't answer the questions, we have individuals that are working furiously on phone lines to respond to questions. I know that there's been tremendous frustration in the public about the availability to get through. It is really overwhelming volume, and we've increased our call agents from 13 before this crisis started to about 170 right now, but the volume still exceeds our capacity to answer questions. So really the best way is to work through the online system and do all of your activity there if at all possible.
Thank you, Michael. We do have some questions coming in. There's some of them have kind of a common theme to them, particularly around the 1099 gig workers, independent contractors, and whatnot. What sort of documentation should they be prepared to offer to help with making their initial claims for unemployment?
So for now, they need to just file an unemployment claim and then go in and do their weekly certifications. And then we will continue to work with the Department of Labor on what documentation is going to be required, because they have not been clear yet about what their expectations are of us to ensure eligibility. And so I think having tax records available, having income statements or income information available will be useful, but for now, we're not requesting any information be submitted specific to those situations. And unfortunately, because the system has never been designed to do this, it's still producing notices based on old eligibility criteria. So I know that is tremendously confusing in the community, and we're working as fast as we can to eliminate that confusion. But we really need to get both the $600 increase in benefits distributed, which I expect to happen no later than next week, and we need to stand up this brand new program for pandemic assistance for those individuals that have not historically been monetarily eligible. Excellent. Thank you, Michael. We can certainly appreciate the suddenness of this isn't just catching business off, really with a situation that was unplanned. And so it's good to hear that you're adding staff and working to get those benefits distributed as quickly as possible. One of the other questions that we're receiving that's getting a kind of a
a following of its own, is around the $600 portion that Congress apportioned. And the question is whether there's any sort of formula that's applied to that, or is that a flat amount that's added to each employee or to each unemployment claim?
The flat amount that's added to each eligible individual's payment on a weekly basis, beginning week March 29th and ending July 25th. And for those folks that have not gotten that payment because the system is still not fully operable in that area, we'll go back and retroactively provide those benefits. But we recognize that people need money right now, and so we are moving as urgently as we can to appropriately distribute this money.
Excellent. Well, there are more questions, Michael, and I'm sure that nobody's more aware of that than you, but we'll get these summed up in our frequently asked questions portion. Again, this the frequently asked questions piece that you see on the screen now is an excellent resource. It's on the azui.com website. It answers these questions and many more for the business owners, and we'll be sure to include it as a resource on the azcommerce.com website as well. So I want to take this moment to thank our panelists for taking open questions and helping people work through what is frankly a very difficult time for us all. The important is that we all remain nimble, and it's important that we all are working very hard to make sure that from the standpoint of workers and their relationship with their employers, that there's a minimum impact of that as can be made possible. We will cover some additional topics. This is workshop 2 of a 5-part series we have planned. People can download these workshops and the presenters slides from az.commerce.com and the COVID portion of our website. I'd like to thank everybody, and we wish you all the best. Thank you.